Good morning, Tracy, San Joaquin County and District 13 residents. I'm your host, Raj Singh, here today with my co-host, Kriti Jatwal, have bringing a candidate running for state assembly. And before we start introducing her, I just want to give some time to Gurtej to say a few words today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raj. So before we start, so we have deep condolences for Justice Ginsburg. So she left a legacy for this country and inspired the generations. Today we have the pleasure to meet Kathy Miller. So she is running for State Assembly for District 13. I appreciate her for giving us the opportunity to listen to her vision, her thoughts, what issues she thinks, and what kinds of solutions she wants to bring. So she is a local business owner. So she served the city council in Stockton as well. And since 2014, so she is serving as a county supervisor. So she is affiliated to many boards. So Delta Protection Commission for 2 years, San Joaquin Area Flood Control Agency for 8 years. So now I'll request Kathy to please let us know more about her.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And first of all, I want to thank you and the City of Tracy for putting together these candidate conversations, especially in these times of COVID and social distancing and self-isolation. It's really important for voters to be able to hear directly from candidates and see with their own eyes how we communicate and help them make decisions for this very important election that's coming up in November. So thank you very much. You touched on a lot of the things that I've done. I have been serving in local government for the last 12 years, 6 on the Board of Supervisors, and before that, 6 years on the Stockton City Council. I have been a small business owner for over a decade. I also represented the downtown property and business owners for 5 years before I was ever elected to office. And I'm also a wife of, this week will be 43 years. My husband and I, we have 3 grown children, and I am a very proud grandmother of 5 these days. So I appreciate you doing this. I'm really interested in talking about the issues and communicating with voters. Really, my campaign, we focused on education, healthcare, water, public safety, and homelessness. And as a county supervisor this year, and I'm also the chair of the board this year, the county has been responsible for coordinating the efforts to deal with and hopefully defeat this pandemic in San Joaquin County. So I think today it will be a really good thing for us to share with the voters some of the things that the county has been doing and the priorities we've been setting during this pandemic.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. And it's our honor as well that we're sharing some thoughts this morning with you. So not taking much more time, let's jump into our first segment of our show. And as you said, you talked about a couple of the core pillars. And before jump into that, I think the first thing I would want to hear from you, and our audience would like to hear from you about the COVID. If you get elected as assembly member, what are some thoughts or what are some approaches you think or challenges that you've been hearing from the residents or from your district or overall San Joaquin County that you will be working on?
Well, first of all, I don't think the impacts from COVID are going away anytime soon. We are going to be dealing with them. There are going to be some very real and huge budget impacts, not just at the state level, but at every level of government. We are going to see our revenues. We haven't yet to a large extent, but we are expecting some major impacts to our revenues, both in the form of property taxes and sales taxes. At the same time, we're going to have increased needs. And so it's going to be really important for the state to prioritize state dollar investments. I think my experience on the Stockton City Council in the lead up and during the bankruptcy are going to really be important to have that voice represented at the state level. It is very easy to be an elected official when times are good and you get to say yes to everybody. There's so many great ideas and so many wonderful programs that you can fund and you can really make happen for your communities. But when times are very hard and there is not the money in the budget, it is very difficult to have to say no to a lot of excellent programs and a lot of wonderful people who have great ideas. The key is you have to be able to prioritize how you spend those dollars and not just focus on today, the immediate crisis. You have to be able to focus on what's going to get you and move you into a strong recovery. I am very proud that the hard decisions we made on the Stockton City Council, and there were many, I'm very proud that within 3 years of coming out of the largest municipal bankruptcy in the history of this nation at that time, that Stockton was rated one of the most fiscally healthy communities in the nation. That's because of making smart decisions and being able to prioritize.
Great. And just to kind of more, a little bit get more into the COVID. So with this COVID as a global pandemic, it's impacting a lot of small businesses and the other businesses as well overall. However, like you talked about the recovery of that. So can you get a little bit highlight more on that part, that how are we getting prepared when we're coming out of the COVID side as a recovery plan?
Well, one of the things that we've done at the county was we set aside $15 million of our federal CARES Act dollars, which are restricted to reimbursing for COVID expenses. But we set aside 15 million of those dollars specifically for our small businesses in San Joaquin County. And we made them available in the form of a grant. This is not a loan that a small business has to pay back. This is the ability to submit your expenses that came upon your business due to COVID and get them reimbursed. And we're continuing with those grants. We have since expanded the program to incorporate slightly larger businesses from 50 to 500 employees. We've also allocated some of those dollars now to help reimburse our hospitals throughout our county. And we've really tried to focus on keeping our businesses afloat, because it's going to be tough. And at the state level, we're going to need to looking at more of these types of programs to help fund our small businesses get back on their feet. And one of the ways the state can do some of these things is by streamlining some of the processes, removing some of the more onerous restrictions on our small businesses, and really providing flexibility to our local governments who know their local businesses best. Give them the flexibility to apply those state dollars in the way that will benefit their communities the most.
Thank you for highlighting on that. Something one more related to this. Actually, about a week or two ago, I was talking to one of my friends who has a small business, and he was discussing with me that is there anything that our government is enforcing to help the people that are leasing the places, because they have contracts with their owners, like property owners, that you have to pay this amount by this date. But because of COVID, they are not able to do break even. So, but that their every month's lease is coming, and if they're not able to pay, they have already in place some of late fees or some percentage needs to be added. Is there something we're looking into towards that to kind of enforce that, hey, maybe for this amount of period, there shouldn't be any late fees, or there should be, government should step in to work between two? I mean, it's obviously it's a private owner versus the person who's renting it. But as this overall global pandemic, I think the government or some agency needs to step in to help each other out. So any thoughts or any vision on that?
Well, it's important to remember that if you only focus on the end user of a property, the renter, you don't take into consideration that it's actually a part of a whole system. And so if renters are not contributing anything toward their rent, then the landlords, they have obligations that are due, whether it's to a lender or it's to a larger property owner that they're leasing space from. So you have to look at it as a system, and you have to make sure that you're providing relief in the entire system. Now, one of the things through this small grant program that I mentioned, rent is something that a small business owner can submit for as reimbursement. Their revenues, and they have been impacted, had to close, and they have been unable to pay that rent, they can submit for a grant to the county. That type of program, I think, is something that's important, because it not only supports the small business, it supports their landlords, and it supports the lenders further upstream. And that's important to keep in mind, because the last thing we want is a bunch of foreclosures if landlords go out of business, and then our small businesses end up getting evicted because the property has turned over. That doesn't benefit anyone. It certainly doesn't benefit our small business owners, and it doesn't benefit our communities who depend on these services and these businesses.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the insight about it and more detail as on this. I think this is a huge topic and a lot of moving pieces in there. So thank you so much. And I will hand over to Gurtej to get us keep going to the next part of our discussion.
Thank you very much, Kathy, because COVID, it has multiple stakeholders involved. One of the biggest stakeholders are our students. So as we are remembering Justice Ginsburg today, so the main legacy she has, the education. With education, with knowledge, you can achieve anything. You can bridge all the barriers, you can cover all the gaps. So from that perspective, our Delta colleges in Stockton, 25,000 students on daily basis, they get valued from Delta College. Our school systems, around thousands of students, they go to schools every day on the daily basis in District 13. So what do you think, so where we are from the education perspective right now, and what would be your point of view for future of our education in District 13?
Well, one of the things the board has been very aware of is the negative impacts of our schools being closed on our students of all ages, but especially our youngest students. And so it's important to remember that no matter what counties, what orders we pass, we cannot be more lenient than the state's orders. We must abide by the state public health orders. San Joaquin County has a high number of both cases per the percentage of our population, as well as the number of people who are testing positive. And so we are in the most at-risk tier right now. That being said, the metrics for reopening schools, to approving a waiver to allow for the schools to create a safety protocol to demonstrate how they will keep their students and their staff safe, that metric is a little bit lower than the metric for reopening a lot of other businesses. That metric we have met, and our public health officer, as of this last week, had already approved 17 private school waivers, a couple of smaller public schools, but everybody needs to remember that with the public schools, they have their own governing boards and their own superintendents who make those decisions for their own students. So as much as everybody would like to think that the board can simply wave a magic wand and send all our students back to school, we do not have that power. And it's important to remember that each school needs to craft their own safety plan, their own reopening plan, to make sure that they address the concerns and the needs of their parents, their students, and they're able to do it safely. I have had a huge priority on education since my earliest days in elected office. I am very aware of how transformative education is. My husband is the first in his family to graduate from college. He drove a forklift in a potato warehouse at night so that he could go to a state college during the day. I returned to a community college as a young mother of 3 very young children to get the skills that I needed to own and operate my own business. And those investments in education made all the difference for our family. So I'm very aware of how important education is to all ages of students. So I've been working for the last 7 years with the San Joaquin Children's Alliance, which is an alliance of advocates for children from early childhood education to even preschool from 0 to 3 years old, all the way up through all of our educational partners, including University of the Pacific, our CSU satellite campus in San Joaquin County, all of us as partners, trying to craft some programs that would really move the needle on literacy and outcomes for our students, and also develop a sustainable funding scheme that will backfill those tobacco tax dollars, which we've seen diminishing as the impacts of that positive public education is now being seen with so many people no longer smoking and using tobacco products. That tax has diminished greatly. And so we have been working hard to identify and develop a new funding stream. There will be a ballot measure again in November. It'll be Measure X that will provide a business tax on cannabis businesses in the unincorporated area. It will only be paid for by those businesses, the same way all the other businesses pay their fair share toward our community. And 50% of those dollars, that's the largest amount ever, 50% of those dollars will be dedicated to programming for children and youth.
Thank you very much, Kathy. So just a follow-up on that. So you mentioned about the satellite campuses that we have in San Joaquin County, and you are a strong proponent of education. So as many people from across the Bay Area and all those places, they are moving into San Joaquin County, and the students here, they are very much encouraged by their parents and everybody to have good education. So most of the times they have to move away from the San Joaquin County, maybe to San Jose or to Sacramento, to find the courses that are being offered, which will help them in their following career. So those students go there and they never come back. So what do you think? So right now the position in San Joaquin County is, and how do you see the future so that we can retain those students, we can provide them with the education that they need, as well as that will encourage the companies to come to the San Joaquin County. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I myself am a victim of this exact thing that you've mentioned. We refer to it as our brain drain in San Joaquin County. All 3 of my children went to public universities, left here because they couldn't do it here locally, and none of them returned to San Joaquin County. And as a grandmother, that is something that causes me great pain, that my grandchildren are not here close to me. So I understand how parents feel about that. I've been a very strong proponent from the very beginning of Assemblymember Eggman's efforts to make sure that the next public university constructed is constructed here in San Joaquin County. Stockton is the largest metropolitan area in this state, whose residents must travel more than 50 miles to have access to a 4-year public education. Now, I realize that for students in Tracy, that still means somewhat of a commute, but it is far less problematic in terms of traffic because it's a reverse commute from Tracy to Stockton, and it is a far shorter distance than where Tracy students need to travel to now, and it can actually make the difference. I also think our state needs to recommit to funding of our community college system. When I was in high school, community college in the state of California, I think it was a $50 annual fee. It was essentially free. And if you graduated from a public school in this state, you were guaranteed that extra 2 years of higher education, which for a lot of students who maybe were behind in high school, that gave you that extra 2 years to catch up. And a lot of students who are perhaps a little more either economically challenged, had to work during high school, or didn't have the same benefits, or simply were perhaps a little more intellectually immature at that age, or started school younger. It gave you an opportunity to catch up and then do those last 2 years at a 4-year institution. And it really kept a lot of people in school and continuing to get a 4-year degree, which then increased their earning capacity for the rest of their lives and provided much higher standard of living for their families. And for many people, it kept them in their local communities, and it kept them in California. So those are all solid investments that our state needs to be making in terms of early childhood education for preschool, so that all our students start kindergarten ready to learn. Make sure that all of our third graders can read at grade level by third grade, because that's the key indicator of long-term educational success. And then providing the funding for a good, solid public education all the way through our community college system and our CSU campuses and our UCs for those students that can qualify for those. So those are the smartest investments we can make. Investing in our future like that, that is the best investment we can make with our public dollars.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Kathy. I grew up listening to the word brain drain, but haven't heard it since long. But yeah, that is the right thing that we should be focused on to stop that thing. Somebody who got the education from the systems, who are familiar with the cities, they should be given an opportunity to stay there and add value to those cities. And
absolutely.
Delta College, so it offers 100+ certificate programs in different trades to just give the skill sets for the students to grow. So now I'll turn it back to Raj.
You're on mute, Raj. That's okay.
So I'm so sorry for myself on mute. Okay, so just follow-up part on the educational side. So we talked about Delta College, we talked about CSU. I think what's more important is to touch on the part, how are we keeping our residents in our cities? Because a lot of folks are driving, just not only in Tracy, but overall if we talk about all the way from Merced, all the way from Lodi side, there are a lot of folks travel in the morning from 4 a.m. to all the way to 9 a.m. to over the Altamont Pass. So when we talk about on the educational side or the job market side, talking about the Bay Area is having a IT hub there. If those company needs to come here, the first challenge that we hear is that there's no workforce in the pipeline. What it really defines, when I talk to different folks, I heard different things. Okay, when you say there's not enough workforce in the pipeline, what does it mean? What does it mean from their point of view is that we have people buying houses here from Bay Area, they're living here. That's the workforce. But for the companies to invest and open up their the offices here, that is not enough for them, because they cannot just rely on temporary people. You can move out tomorrow, or something happens, this person move out of Tracy back to San Jose or something. They need stable pipeline that's coming directly from the universities. So when we're talking about that, how do you see in the future for our district? Because if I read probably a month ago, I read the news, there were talks about CSU being opened in Stockton, but I think there's some challenges with that as well. So overall, can you highlight on us and all the audience on that part?
It is going to be a challenge. I mean, the efforts to bring a public four-year university, whether it's a CSU or a Cal Poly, doesn't matter which one, that's a long-term effort. Even before COVID, we were probably looking at a decade of focused work, both in Sacramento and locally, to build that pipeline, demonstrate that we have the students in a critical mass graduating from our high schools, prepared to enter a four-year school. We've been working really hard developing these partnerships with Delta College, so that if you come through Delta College, you're guaranteed admission into CSU Stanislaus. We need to convince the state to give us more slots, more student positions in our satellite CSU, so that we can demonstrate we can fill them. And the budget hit on COVID. I mean, the report that came out on the CSU clearly said Stockton has the population base. We also have a large area that we would draw from of students on the edges of that district that are currently commuting up to Sacramento State or commuting into the East Bay or down to Turlock. A percentage of those students would commute the other direction, and they would go into the center of the county. So bringing a CSU here is not just critical for our education. It's critical for our long-term economic development of San Joaquin County and this whole region, because there are students from the foothills as well, from Calaveras and Amador counties, which do not have access to a four-year public school, who would come down the hill into San Joaquin County. And so I think it's one of the reasons why Assemblymember Eggman actually recruited me to run for her seat when she was deciding whether or not to run for the Senate, because she knew that I felt so strongly about this, that I really was willing to work toward it, and that I would continue the work even after she turned out of her time in Sacramento. And so I think it is really important to have someone that has that history, that understands how this public university would really transform our region. I mean, it would be an absolute game changer. I mean, when you think about not just the students, you think about all the jobs that it creates at a university. Then you think about all of the peripheral things that are attached to universities. You think of the research facilities, you think of the medical facilities that locate here because there is access to students who are training in healthcare programs. All of those things, that's how we're going to get that critical mass that is going to get employers who bring good paying, professional jobs to this region. That's how we're going to do it. And so it's going to be a long-term effort. We need somebody that is very passionate about it. And it takes more than just saying, oh yeah, I support that. You have to understand how you have to work with the people in Sacramento. And you have to have those close connections into the business community here. You need to understand how the partnership fits in, how the business council fits in, how the various chambers of commerce fit in to this equation. And you have to have those established relationships and that trust built up so you can bring everybody to the table and we're all working toward the same goal.
No, that is very imperative overall, putting a politics on the side, but the points that you brought, those are very critical and important. And you meant two terms, terminology you used, long-term and being able to understand what your community needs, how to partner up with them. So it's not going to open up the CSU or any educational institution. Oh, I support this, and tomorrow it's going to be there. It's going to take a while, but somebody needs to start today so it can be done in 10 years or 5 years or whatever it would take. So thank you for highlighting and informing us on that part. And I would hand it over back to Gritesh to kind of get us moving with our discussion to the next part.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kathy, for touching this. Yeah, that is correct. So educational institutes, they provide the knowledge and the first they are self-sustained, then they provide the whatever is needed for the community, for the society too. And moving along with that, so Central Valley District 13, we are majorly dependent on agriculture, or agriculture is one of the biggest assets that we have here. So 1 out of 3 jobs, they are from farming. So farming is very much related to our water. So in 20th century, our delta, our levees, those were built. Those are deteriorating, and the need in Southern California is very much increasing for the water. So that has to be transferred from Northern California. So from your point of view, what do you think where we are with respect to water now, and how you see our future?
Well, you're absolutely correct. Water is a huge issue for us in San Joaquin County. A lot of people aren't really aware of the variety of water issues we face here in San Joaquin County. We run the full gamut. We have everything from restrictions on our use of surface water to requirements to properly manage our groundwater aquifers. We have water quality issues in the Delta. Many of our communities draw their water, drinking water, directly from the Delta. We have equity issues. We have a lot of economically challenged communities that are impacted by negative water quality. We also have, we sit at the bottom of the valley. We call it the bottom of the bathtub. We have huge flood control issues. We have hundreds of thousands of residents who live behind levees in this county. And then I don't think many people know that the largest amount of the San Joaquin Delta sits in our county. We have the largest amount of the Delta within our county boundaries. And the Delta is a really incredible, unique environment that provides water, recreation. It also has an amazing variety of small family-run farms that produce just an outstanding diversity of very high-value crops. Just this last year, while agriculture provides annually approximately $2 to $2.3 billion to our economy, the ripple of that ag economy contributes over $5 billion a year to our county economy. It is by far the largest economic sector in San Joaquin County. And so we have to juggle all of these needs against the tremendous pressure from Southern California to move always more water through our Delta and south. And so while that is a very real need, and it's important for all of us to remember that water is not a luxury, all Californians have a necessity to have access to clean drinking water. So this is an issue that needs to be solved on a statewide basis. And it needs to be solved in a way that doesn't pick winners and losers, and it doesn't pit one region of California against another. In San Joaquin County, we have advocated strongly for a full portfolio of water solutions to be invested in by our state that would actually create new water. It's important to remember that the tunnel project, which I have been involved in stopping and fighting for well over a decade, that doesn't create any new water. All it does is provide a new way to move water. And our state has a need for more water. And so if we invest all of our dollars in a project that doesn't address that, we're using up our resources and we won't have them left to provide critical investment in levee infrastructure. I mean, even as the tunnel project is currently proposed, 50% of the time, the tunnel will not be used to convey water. The water will flow through the delta, which means those levees absolutely must be maintained and improved upon. We have not done that because the money has been going toward, financing this huge project. There's conservation projects in other parts of the state that are reaping huge benefits to their area and are helping to make them less reliant or completely non-dependent on Delta water. Those are important. I mean, Orange County, they have invested heavily in treating their wastewater and then recharging their aquifer with treated wastewater so that it doesn't go to waste. Los Angeles County, huge investment, billions of dollars of investment in recapturing stormwater runoff, treating it and using it to increase their water supply. The San Diego area has invested in desalination. As the technology improves, all of these alternative strategies become more cost effective and have the potential to relieve the stress on the Delta, which would allow its environment to recover. We need to be smart about how we invest in it instead of just single-mindedly pursuing, an old 20th century solution, which no longer is relevant. We need to be looking at 21st century solutions for our water issues. I have served on every single water agency in this region: groundwater banking, flood control, Delta protection. I chaired the Delta Conservancy, all of them. And it is a steep learning curve, and it's really important that we have elected representation that understands how complicated it is, how interwoven all of these water systems are with their environment, and can effectively advocate for real solutions.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for educating our voters about the water concerns. Yeah, in 20th century, this delta and levee was just built to channelize the water. As from the mountains across the San Francisco, so those has to reach to the Southern California as the need is increasing. But we are in 21st century, as you mentioned, there are lots of other options that are to be looked upon, and those can be explored to just meet the needs. So now I'll turn it back to Raj.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Gruthesh. And I think we touched on really great points. And as you said, the water is essential for everybody. And that brings me to a topic regarding healthcare. I think that's the necessity for everybody as well. So can you tell us what's your stand or what's your vision on the healthcare side?
Well, that has been a real priority for the Board of Supervisors. COVID has pointed out in very stark terms how important it is for people to have access to healthcare. So it is important that that we continue to find ways for all of the residents of San Joaquin County to have access to quality, affordable healthcare. The top priority for the board on the Federal CARES Act dollars, which we received, has been to ensure that our public health system, our public health department, our public hospital, and our public clinic system remain fiscally solvent and able to continue to provide critical healthcare services to the residents of San Joaquin County. Of the CARES Act dollars, I'm going to guess that by the time we're done, upwards of $80 million is going to go just to our public hospital to reimburse for direct COVID expenses and make sure that it remains open. Because our public hospital isn't just the hospital of last resort for low-income residents. It's also our trauma center for our whole county. Coming to the board in the next month, I expect to see an item which is going to raise the level of our trauma center to a level 2, which means even higher quality trauma care for our residents. So it is vitally important that we keep the doors open at that hospital. And one of the things we struggle with long-term here in terms of healthcare is the ability to recruit and retain healthcare professionals. So this is going to loop back a little bit to our earlier conversation on education. One of the things we need to do is continue to build upon these career pathways that we have put into place, especially as they pertain to healthcare. So there's a Health Careers Academy in Stockton. We could use more of them across our county, which provide a targeted curriculum to high school students that is heavy on the subject that they will need and provides them with exposure to healthcare careers so that they can make this decision early to pursue this type of career. When they graduate from there, they are guaranteed entry in Delta College to one of their health career programs. And this gives them the ability to earn a certificate, which helps them earn more money in a profession while they continue then, and they have a guaranteed acceptance into CSU. So they can continue moving forward with a 4-year degree and even onward into becoming a doctor, a dentist, some kind of highly trained healthcare professional that requires an even higher level of education. It puts them on this pathway. We need more of that because we have a very difficult time recruiting healthcare professionals, not just in San Joaquin County, but the whole Central Valley. And to be perfectly honest, the best way to recruit healthcare professionals is to grow our own. San Joaquin General has a very robust residency program, as does St. Joseph's. We need to continue making sure that we attract great students, that we keep our brightest students here, and that we encourage them. If you pursue these careers in healthcare, there are going to be good paying jobs waiting for you here. You can have a lifetime profession and be able to raise your family near your family in a beautiful part of California where you can afford to live and be able to provide for your family.
Thank you, Kathy, for highlighting on that. And it's bringing me to another part of the healthcare side question. So when I have talks with Mountain House residents, Tracy residents, Lathrop, Manteca, all of them, there's a common question that I always hear because they have friends, they have family members that live in Tracy, Mountain House, and vice versa. So when we're looking at Mountain House, the way it's growing and the Tracy it's growing, we only have one emergency hospital in Tracy, which is Sutter. There's not another hospital that serves the Mountain House population and Tracy. So all of us needs to either go to Stockton or go to Modesto, beside the Sutter being in Tracy. What are your thoughts or your future plan or you see in the future to bring or address these issues?
Well, as a county, our focus has been in French Camp with both the hospital and the clinic system and trying to plan for its future. The reality is, especially during COVID, all of our hospitals are experiencing significant financial impacts. They were forced to turn away all of their elective surgery for several months so that they could provide capacity for any potential surge in COVID patients. That's been I think that what a lot of the hospitals are going to be doing is looking at establishing strategic partnerships to try to expand services into their area. I mean, we've seen Adventist expand and is now operating Dameron Hospital. St. Joseph's is partnering with Kaiser. There is Doctors Hospital in Manteca, but a lot of Kaiser patients who are in the south part of our county are going to Modesto if they're Kaiser patients. So they're kind of splitting between Modesto and Stockton. All of our hospitals are going to continue to struggle with that. That's just a reality. I would love to be able to say that the county would be expanding into other areas. The reality is we had 2 clinics that we expanded into Manteca and into another part of South Stockton near our public health facility. And because there are other clinics in those areas that operate almost the same model, and they are nonprofit clinics, the competition, we were unable to build the critical patient base. And in an effort to protect our older existing clinics and the hospital, we worked with those private clinics to make sure that we did a soft handoff to our patients. We didn't tell our patients, oh, you must go to the clinics in French Camp. We told our patients in Manteca, there are other clinics right here where you can go and we will help you make that transition. We had to do that. And that's just a reality. We have to partner. We have a robust partnership, the county, with both community medical centers and Golden Valley Health Centers. We're gonna see more of those for our residents, especially our lower income residents, to be able to provide critical health services. It is a real priority for us. Every 10 years, we take a look at, from the county hospital perspective, are there any partnerships available to us that would improve our ability to continue delivering services, that would maybe help increase services that we can provide through partnerships? And what's the best course of action to make sure we stay healthy in the future and we remain our public health, our public hospital, and our trauma center? We're doing that right now. We're looking to see what kind of positive partnerships we could expand on. I think that's what we're going to see more of. And to be honest, the more we're able to grow our own healthcare professionals here in this county, the more we will begin to see things like an increase in orthopedic surgeons that develop their own outpatient surgery centers, an increase in cardiology practices that once again provide a private interventional cardiology clinic. Those kind of things, the more healthcare professionals we can develop here, they will create private sector jobs, and which will increase access to healthcare for our residents.
Thank you, Kathy, for highlighting on that topic as well. So not taking much long, but just want to keep everybody in loop that we're hitting almost 15 minutes. And let's just try to, we have, I believe, 2 more topics that we would like to touch. We think they're important. And the next one is about public safety. And that is a huge nationwide hot topic right now. So I am very much interested, and I believe our audience would love to hear your stand on that too.
Well, first of all, the county either has direct oversight or budget oversight on the majority of our law and justice system in our county. So it's not just about the sheriff's department. There's also the public defender, the district attorney, the probation department, and we operate the jail and the medical examiner. And so it's a very large a portion of our law and justice system that the county has oversight, or if they are directly elected, as in the case of the district attorney and the sheriff, you still have budget oversight. I do not support defunding our police departments. We have a need, and in fact, many of our most economically challenged neighborhoods are the neighborhoods that need protection the most. That being said, all of our residents, no matter where they live, no matter what their zip code, no matter what language they speak, and no matter what the color of their skin is, all of our residents have the right to have to be able to put their faith and trust in our law enforcement officers who take an oath to protect and serve them. We have done a lot of very positive things in this county in the last 5 to 10 years in the areas of criminal justice reform. The city of Stockton instituted a Marshall Plan on Crime, which we did a look-see over our jail process, and we instituted a pretrial assessment program which eliminated the jail overcrowding. The only people awaiting trial in our jail now are people who are either a danger to themselves or their community. We eliminated the requirement for cash bail years ago in this county, and it's working very, very well. We have been blessed with a very outstanding probation department, which has instituted some fantastic reforms which are making a real difference, reducing recidivism, the impact of people reoffending with crimes. And it is having a real impact, redirecting people out of criminal behavior through our collaborative courts. We have a drug court. We have a DUI court. We have a homelessness court that takes people that have committed relatively minor nonviolent crimes and focuses on giving them the choice. Look, here it is. You either go to jail or you participate in a treatment program that is going to help you get your life back on track. We've instituted juvenile justice reform to help keep our youngest offenders out of prisons where they're victimized by adult criminals, lifetime criminals, and keep them closer to their families and their support systems so that we can rehabilitate them and get their lives back on a productive path. Many of our police forces have worked very hard on creating homelessness liaisons, officers whose primary focus is on interacting with the homeless community to address those quality of life issues that make us all feel less safe and just very stressed out, and help put those people in touch with programs and services, whether it's substance abuse program, or it's mental health programs, or it's shelters, or job retraining, any of those things to help get them off the streets and into some kind of permanent supportive housing. All of those things are really, really positive, and we have already been doing them for a long time here in San Joaquin County. I personally believe that's the reason why the vast majority of the protests following the death of George Floyd have been peaceful demonstrations throughout San Joaquin County. I think that's why. I think because our law enforcement officers have been doing the hard work of interacting with their community and getting to know them and investing in community policing. I think that pays off. And I think those are smart investments. And I think they benefit everybody that lives here in San Joaquin.
No, thank you very much, Kathy, for touching the public safety aspect and where we are and what your vision, what your viewpoint is for the public safety and law enforcement. And you touched the homeless aspect too. So there are many reforms there. So that yeah, it is not one solution fits the problem. So identifying the problem and moving forward in the right direction to keep them out of the homelessness crisis. So at the end, I will request you to please briefly summarize what our audience should take away from you and how they will remember you and make an informed decision for November 3rd.
I guess what I would leave people with is experience does matter. And it matters now more than ever. We have very real issues facing our region and our state. And I think it is really critically important that we send our most experienced and effective representative to Sacramento. I feel so strongly that that in addition to that, leadership matters. It's not enough to just say, I support this and I support that and speak in political sound bites. You know, when the city of Stockton's finances melted down, I stepped up in a really difficult role as vice mayor and communicated with the public and made some tough decisions that really helped put the city back on track. And to be perfectly honest, San Joaquin County cannot thrive if the city of Stockton is failing. It is simply too large of a community. There's too many people that live there. And so the future of all of our cities, they're inextricably intertwined. And so it's important that we have someone that understands that. My experience both in the private sector as a small business owner, as someone who has advocated for better than 15 years on behalf of business owners and residents, and also my experience at both the city level and the county level, I believe it really makes me uniquely qualified to represent the voters of Assembly District 13. And I believe that's why, if you look at my list of endorsements on my website, electkathymiller.com, you will see just a wide range of folks who have endorsed me. And I think the last thing I would leave voters with is there are two Democrats in this race, but I am the only Democrat that is endorsed by the Democratic Party, by both our congressmen, McNerney and Harder, by Assembly member Susan Eggman, by the California Nurses Association, by the California Federation of Teachers, by working families across this county. And I think it's important for voters to know that they can trust the fact that I stand for those values, and that I would be deeply honored to have their vote in November.
Thank you, Kathy. And the last, do you mind sharing your contact information if anybody would have a follow-up question or they wanted to clarify something with you? And we always encourage our voters or and the audience that if they do have, they can let us know and we can convey or send their message and share with you. But I think it'll be better if you give them something directly that they can go to your website or your Facebook page or any email address. Please do so.
My email is Kathy with a K at electkathymiller.com. We have a Facebook page, which is Kathy Miller for Assembly District 13. Any of those places, feel free to direct comments or concerns. I personally answer them, and so they will hear from me, and I welcome that interaction with the voters of San Joaquin County. And again, thank you so much for doing these conversations. I think they're just incredibly positive, and I think all of us should be very grateful for this work. You're taking your personal time to do this, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Kathy. We sincerely appreciate you sparing your time educating us as well as the voters with your vision, with the issues and the solutions. And at the end, I would again say, so what we have learned from the great legacy of Justice Ginsburg, knowledge is power. So please and please ask questions, follow up with the candidate, and make an informed decision for November 3rd. Thank you very much.
But
Thank you both.
bye.
Bye-bye.